Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third info session. We're going to talk about FDI in Indian retail in this session today. And let's look at some of the things that we want to talk about. So, like why FDI in Indian retail, for example. So, let's ask this question, you know, as a part of the discussion. Why FDI in Indian retail? Indian retail is a very major component of the GDP when you look at it. It's close to 14%. Secondly, it also holds a major employment sector. Close to 8 or 9% of the employment is being held by the retail sector. Now, there's also unorganized retail and organized retail. So, unorganized retail is what you see as the kirana stores and the street hawkers and the vendors and all that. Organized retail, on the other hand, is Big Bazaar and Big Apple and all these stores that you have, plus other shops like other brands like say Westside and all that. Now, what FDI in retail will bring about is a lot of, as they say, a lot of efficiency in supply chain, a lot of investment in technology, and more growth, more tax revenues for the government, and more employment generation of the Indian masses. Right now, there are other aspects to it also as to why FDI in Indian retail could be beneficial, because when you look at what the government has proposed apart from the limits, say this much in multi-brand, this much in single brand, it also says that of the amount minimum cap that you need to invest here in India, 50% of that will go to back-end infrastructure. Now, this is one of the biggest problems in India. Our infrastructure is very undeveloped. Okay, so we are very infrastructure constrained economy, supply constrained economy. Cold storage is less, where we can store our inventory is less. So there's a lot of wastage there, a lot of spoilage is there that happens. And who has to pay for it? Consumers have to pay for it, right? So that becomes a big issue. So when the FDI comes in and say whoever is bringing the money, they have to invest 50% into back-end infrastructure. So that will help boost our infrastructure that you have, cold storages and all that stuff. Secondly, it will be a good deal for the farmers. Why? Because then you don't have middlemen. In a statistic that I came across, in developing economies like India and all, 1/3 of the price goes to the farmer. In developed economies, 2/3 of the price goes to the farmer. So that becomes a better deal for the farmers, right? Then there are also points like inflow of dollars. FDI is going to bring in lots of dollars, yes, and that will sort of help our currency versus the US currency, right? So given the depreciation that we've had so far, I don't know if that is deliberate or like the government would not or cannot. If the government cannot help that depreciation going worse, then inflow will help them tackle that situation, right? Because it's going to bring in lots of forex reserves, USD, into our economy. So that helps. So in those senses, when you look at it, it's a very positive thing. The opposition, on the other hand, has been haggling wildly about FDI in retail is not nice. It's going to enslave us, according to Anna Hazare. It's going to enslave us, and it's going to ruin the kirana stores and all that. There's also another government stipulation which when you look at that, it will help you answer these questions. The government says that all of these retail multi-brand is going to come in cities which have more than 10 million population, and they have identified that, and more than 1 million population, and they have identified that as 53 cities out of 8,000 cities and towns. That's 53, right? That's what, 0.6% or 0.7%, right? This is where you'll have your retailers coming in, right? Now, and for the rest of the towns and cities, you have what it is as today, right? So when these retailers come in only to 0.7 of these towns and cities, of course they have higher incomes and all, they will not affect in that sense the kirana stores, because look at the way the kirana stores are located. A Walmart in India will not be located in the middle of a neighborhood. It will be slightly outside the neighborhood, between two neighborhoods, or something of that sort. Right? Kirana stores will lose some of the business. Yes, they will lose, but they'll also retain some of the business. Let's be very frank about it, right? And why is the opposition, when you look at it, why is the opposition being so, you know, vehement about their point that if Walmart comes in, they'll take out all the Kirana stores? Well, let me tell you, when Big Bazaar came in and West Side came in, they did not spoil all the Kirana stores. You still go to the Kirana stores, right? I mean, you still go to buy veggies in the local market and all that. We all do that. So it's not going to completely wipe out, right? Anna Hazare's point about enslaving, you know, that is a particularly of an irritant to me, because how is that enslaving? A big bazaar is identical to a Walmart, except the fact that a Walmart's on a global scale and not big bazaar. So when big bazaar comes in, they don't say anything that it's going to ruin everything and we're going to be enslaved and we're going to go to the dumps and we are now going to flounder and all that. Nothing of that sort happened, right? But some things that we need to take care of. First things, one, all that money that is coming in, the government has to make sure that that money comes in through the proper channels. You cannot have money coming in from tax havens, Mauritius, Cayman Islands. You cannot have money coming in from there. The government has to monitor that, right? Secondly, investments that come in here and help build our retail sector, organized retail sector, and as people participate in the retail transactions with that retail sector, all those transactions, they need to go through the banking system, Indian banking system, right? That will build transparency and all that sorts. And lastly, and probably the most important of all these points, is the quality. The quality has to be maintained. We all know that there's some difference, acceptable level of difference between, say, what is sold in India and what is sold in France, what is sold in the US, what is sold in, say, Thailand, for example. There's always some difference in quality because we are developing countries, they are developed countries. Plus, some they have stricter regulations and all that. You know, you must have this many. You have to display your product information on the sides, the constituents, the nutrient value, and all that. We don't have so much of strict regulations. They have it. So, in the end, what happens? There is slight difference in product quality. The only thing the government, as a part of its monitoring, has to make sure that that quality does not deteriorate beyond acceptable levels. So if it does slightly, it's okay, because we have different tastes than the Westerners. Westerners have different tastes than us. So that's acceptable, but not too much. So a stricter regulation is in order as to what they sell and how they sell, what kind of a marketing ploy they use, and all that. That has to be monitored very strictly. Apart from all this, there's also another point which I thought is worth mentioning, is that Indian SME sector. SME sector is basically small and medium scale enterprises. Small and medium scale enterprises are a very fragmented, very unorganized, more like the retail sector itself. Very fragmented, very organized, and hardly developed. Retail sector is thankfully a little developed, but SME sector is hardly developed, right? So the government has also made sure, in that sense, that as a part of the clause, that these people, they put in some sort of an attention to the SME sector, because they said that 30% of all your procurement should be from the small industries. So what that will do is enable these small industries to develop, right, to build their competencies and to sell their goods to high quality vendors like the Walmarts, the Tesco's, and all that. So it will help them develop. So all that on a whole will lead that to better growth and development, right? So FDI on the whole should be a good deal, like it has been for Russia, China, and Thailand, Brazil, and all these countries. But close monitoring needs to be in place in this case. Where the money is coming from, what about the banking system, as in the transaction going to the Indian banking system or what, and things of that sort needs to be monitored very, very carefully. right? So that's all that I have to say so far in this very short session, I must say, because it's not a monetary concept, it's not economics, so my competencies in this are not very much. But anyway, do post your questions on the spreadsheet and I'll try and answer them as much as I can. Yeah, thanks.